The Sakari were almost extinct, their entire world shrouded in the sick stench of death, until the humans arrived and gave them one last hope to survive. A mysterious plague had ravaged the Sakari homeworld, defying all attempts to stop it. The alien species' greatest scientists and doctors were baffled. This plague attacked the Sakari's unique circulatory system, clogging and shredding blood vessels with horrific efficiency. Organs failed, and bodies shut down mere days after infection. Sakari of all ages succumbed, from the eldest matriarchs to the youngest hatchlings. The entire planet was becoming a desolate graveyard as the very foundations of their advanced civilization crumbled. Desperate and facing imminent extinction, the Sakari High Council sent out a distress signal to the stars. It was their last option. Their people would perish without a miracle. The signal reached a human exploration vessel captained by Zachary Burns. He read the plea from a dying world and knew he had to act. But many of his crew resisted, fearing this alien plague. "We can't let a whole species go extinct, not if there's a chance we can help." Zachary's voice was firm with resolve. He set course for the Sakari homeworld, determined to lend aid, even if he had to drag his reluctant crew there. Arriving in orbit, the humans were shocked by what they saw, a planet on the verge of total collapse. The Council was distrustful and resistant to outside help at first. Tensions with the humans rose. But Pixis, the head Sakari researcher, knew collaborating with these aliens was their only shot. He snuck Zachary samples of the lethal pathogen, praying the humans' strange science could find a treatment. But some factions saw the vulnerable human ship as an opportunity. Insurgents who viewed the plague as divine punishment from their gods attacked, determined to stop the alien interference. Zachary's crew fought them off while racing to study the virus, knowing every lost second meant more Sakari lives lost. As death tolls swelled and the planet fell into chaos, the humans realized the horrific stakes. The Sakari would be extinct, billions of lives snuffed out, if a cure wasn't found immediately. Pixis and his people's fate depended entirely on this small group of humans pulling off the impossible. The survival of an entire alien species hinged on Zachary's crew, deciphering and stopping a virus deadlier than anything originating on Earth. The humans were the Sakari's last hope, their only hope. Failure would mean a mass grave the size of a world and the end of a civilization. Zachary slumped into his chair, rubbing his bloodshot eyes. He couldn't remember the last time he'd slept more than a couple hours at a stretch. His mind churned with the horrific images of the dying Sakari, their bodies racked by the engineered plague. But now, after days of non-stop work, he finally had an answer. He called an emergency meeting with the Sakari High Council and Pixis. As they filed into the room, Zachary pulled up the damning evidence on the main view screen. "This plague isn't natural," he said grimly. "It's a bioweapon, and based on its genetic markers, it was created by the Zorath to target Sakari physiology." Audible gasps rippled through the council members. Pixis gripped the table, his mottled green skin paling. "The Zorath? I should have known. They've always envied our technology," Pixis growled. "Hundreds of thousands dead, all because of their treachery." "We'll help you develop a cure and fortify your defenses," Zachary promised. "This is an act of war. You have Earth's full support." The council conferred amongst themselves in rapid clicks and hisses. Then the eldest matriarch stepped forward, leaning heavily on her staff. "The Sakari accept your aid, Captain Burns," she said solemnly. "Our people are united with yours against this atrocity." Zachary wasted no time calling for reinforcements from Earth. The UES Valor, a formidable battleship overflowing with advanced weaponry, arrived in Sakari space to bolster their defenses. Its crew offloaded crates of medical supplies and equipment to aid in the quest for a cure. In the lab, Zachary and Pixis worked side by side, the human and Sakari scientists single-minded in their drive to unravel the bioweapon's secrets. They labored in rotating shifts, snatching mere hours of sleep on cots before diving back into the research. Slowly but surely, they began to reconstruct the plague's genome and develop a counter-agent. But their progress was interrupted by proximity alarms blaring through the ship. A Zorath battle fleet had dropped out of warp at the system's edge, dozens of angular ships jam-packed with pulsing plasma cannons. "Surrender the Sakari to us and withdraw, humans!" Admiral Karos demanded over comms, his reptilian face sneering. "This plague is only the beginning. We will claim the Sakari's technology for ourselves, and you cannot stop us." Zachary glanced at the tactical readouts. The UES Valor was formidable but faced a daunting fight against the more numerous Zorath ships. They needed more time to replicate the cure and arm the Sakari. "Hail them," Zachary ordered, a desperate plan taking shape. "Request a meeting with Admiral Kairos to negotiate a truce. We'll stall him while the cure is prepared." Pixis met his gaze, understanding passing between them. The Sakari rebel nodded, hurrying to assemble an infiltration team. Admiral Kairos strode onto the Valor's bridge, flanked by hulking bodyguards. Zachary greeted him with forced geniality, leading the Zorath commander into a nearby conference room. As the doors closed behind Kairos, Pixis and his saboteurs snuck aboard the Admiral's flagship. They split into teams, planting explosives at key systems. Security patrols fell to their blades and nerve gas. In engineering, Pixis himself planted the final charge on the main reactor controls. Kairos's pompous demands for surrender droned on. Zachary gritted his teeth, barely restraining himself from punching the arrogant Zorath in his scaled face. Privately, he prayed Pixis had succeeded. Then his comlink chirped twice the agreed signal. Zachary smiled coldly. "You want to discuss terms, Admiral? Let's start with your fleet's unconditional withdrawal, considering my saboteurs just disabled your flagship." Kairos leapt to his feet, spitting furious threats, but Zachary cut him off. "The Zorath's bioweapon and planned conquest of the Sakari will be exposed to the entire galaxy unless you retreat now," he stated flatly. "Your fleet is crippled. Your scheme is finished." As if on cue, secondary explosions rippled across the Zorath flagship's hull. Kairos slammed a fist on the table, splitting it in two, but he was cornered and knew it. Seething with repressed rage, the Admiral withdrew his armada. The Valor's guns tracked them until they vanished into warp. In the following hours, the cure was widely distributed to the Sakari. Millions were saved from the bioweapon's lethal grasp. The Sakari High Council honored Zachary and his crew as saviors. But the battle-scarred human captain knew this was not nearly finished. The Zorath were still out there, and their ruthless aggression posed an ongoing danger. Both humanity and the Sakari must remain on guard. Yet, as Zachary watched Pixis console a recovered hatchling, he knew the alliance forged between their people would weather any threat. The Zorath had unwittingly created a formidable union that would endure. Together, humans and Sakari would face the perils of this strange galaxy and emerge stronger than ever before. The UES Valor hung in orbit above the Sakari homeworld, its hull still scarred from the battle with the Zorath. Captain Zachary Burns stood on the bridge, watching as Sakari ships docked with his vessel to offload supplies and personnel. The aftermath of the plague left the planet's surface a patchwork of devastation, but signs of recovery were emerging. Zachary turned as Pixis entered the bridge, the Sakari's mottled green skin looking healthier than it had in weeks. "The cure distribution is proceeding on schedule," Pixis reported, "but we must prepare for potential Zorath retaliation." "Agreed," Zachary nodded. "Let's meet with the High Council to discuss strategy." In the council chambers, tensions ran high as they debated their next moves. Zachary laid out his proposal for bolstering Sakari defenses. "We'll start by upgrading your orbital defense grid with our latest shield technology," he explained. "And we can begin training your troops in human combat tactics immediately." The Sakari matriarch nodded approvingly. "What of offensive capabilities? We must be prepared to strike back if attacked again." Zachary hesitated. "We'll share some weapons tech, but I caution against escalation. The Zorath could interpret it as aggression." "They attacked us first," a younger counselor hissed. "We should retaliate now while they're weakened." "And risk all-out war?" Zachary countered. We need time to rebuild our strength first. The debate raged on, but eventually a compromise was reached. They would focus on defense and deterrence for now, while preparing contingency plans for targeted strikes if needed. Over the following weeks, Zachary oversaw joint training exercises between human Marines and Sicari soldiers. The aliens struggled at first with human weaponry, their six-fingered hands fumbling with rifle triggers. But they were quick learners, and soon the training grounds echoed with the sounds of plasma fire as the two species drilled together. Meanwhile, in a secure lab aboard the Valor, Pixis and a team of human scientists pored over samples of the Zorath bioweapon. Zachary entered to find them huddled around a holoprojector, faces grim. "What did you find?" he asked. Pixis manipulated the hologram, zooming in on the virus's genetic structure. This bioweapon wasn't created recently. Its base strain shows signs of decades of refinement. The Zorath have been planning this for a very long time. Zachary's blood ran cold. "You mean they've been working to destroy the Sicari for years, even while maintaining diplomatic relations?" "Precisely," Pixis confirmed. "We've uncovered evidence of covert Zorath operations dating back generations. Sabotage, assassinations, economic manipulation, all designed to gradually weaken us." The implications were staggering. As they compiled their findings to present to the Council, alert klaxons suddenly blared throughout the ship. "Multiple warp signatures detected," the tactical officer shouted. "Zorath fleet incoming!" Zachary raced to the bridge, barking orders. "Battle stations, get me a link to Sicari Command." The view screen lit up with dozens of Zorath warships dropping out of warp. Zachary's mind raced. They weren't ready for this. Not yet. He opened a channel to Earth, requesting immediate reinforcements. But the nearest human fleet was weeks away. "We need to buy time," Zachary muttered. Then an idea struck. "Pixis, what's the status of that Zorath shipyard we identified?" The Sicari's eyes widened as he grasped Zachary's plan. "It's lightly defended. A precision strike could cripple their ability to produce capital ships." Zachary nodded grimly. "Assemble your best strike team. We're going to hit them where it hurts." Hours later, Zachary found himself aboard a cloaked Sicari infiltrator, approaching the massive Zorath shipyard. Pixis sat beside him, coordinating with the strike team in the hold. "Remember," Zachary addressed the gathered Sicari commandos, "our goal is to destroy their production capabilities and escape. No unnecessary risks." They docked undetected and split into teams, planting explosives at key points throughout the facility. But as Zachary and Pixis reached the main reactor, alarms began to blare. "We've been made!" Pixis shouted, firing his plasma rifle at approaching Zorath guards. Zachary triggered the detonator, and explosions rocked the shipyard. "Fall back to the ship!" They fought their way through waves of Zorath defenders, Pixis providing covering fire as Zachary dragged wounded Sicari soldiers aboard. Just as they prepared to disengage, a Zorath energy blast struck Pixis in the chest. "No!" Zachary cried, hauling his friend into the ship as their engines roared to life. The infiltrator limped back to Sicari space, its hull scarred and systems failing. Zachary worked desperately to stabilize Pixis, but the Sicari's life signs were fading fast. With his last breath, Pixis gripped Zachary's arm. "The data. In my pack. Zorath leadership. Strategies. Use it. Save our people." Pixis went still, and Zachary bowed his head in grief. But there was no time to mourn. As they docked with the Valor, reports flooded in of the successful strike against the shipyard, and the Zorath fleet in retreat. Word of Pixis's sacrifice spread quickly. Zachary watched from the Valor's bridge as protests erupted across Sicari cities, their people demanding action against the Zorath threat. The High Council convened an emergency session, and their decision was unanimous. The Sicari were going to war. In a solemn ceremony, Zachary found himself promoted to Admiral, given command of the combined Sicari human fleet. As he donned his new insignia, a familiar voice hailed the Valor. "This is Captain Elena Chen of the UES Defiance reporting for duty, Admiral." Zachary allowed himself a small smile. His former XO had arrived with human reinforcements. "Glad to have you with us, Elena," he replied. "We're going to need every ship we can muster." As the fleet assembled in high orbit, Zachary studied the tactical displays. The Zorath would be back, and in greater numbers. This battle would decide the fate of two civilizations. Zachary took a deep breath, steeling himself for the challenges ahead. The real test of the Sakari-human alliance was just beginning. The UES Defiance hung in orbit above the Sakari homeworld, its hull gleaming as the system's star caught its surface. Admiral Zachary Burns stood on the bridge, his eyes fixed on the tactical display. A sea of blue markers represented the combined Sakari-human fleet, arrayed in a defensive formation around the planet. "Status report," Zachary called out. "All ships in position, Admiral," his XO responded. "Sakari vessels integrated into our battle groups as planned." Zachary nodded, then opened a channel to the fleet. "This is Admiral Burns. The Zorath are coming, and they mean to wipe out everything we've built here. But we won't let that happen. Human and Sakari, we stand together. Watch each other's backs out there." As he closed the channel, a priority message flashed on his console. Zachary's lips pursed as he read the decrypted intel from Pixis's final transmission. "Ops, alert all commands," he ordered. "The Zorath are committing their entire military. This isn't just an invasion, it's an extermination fleet." Tense minutes ticked by, then long-range sensors lit up. "Multiple warp signatures detected," the sensor officer shouted. "Two separate groups closing fast from opposite vectors." Zachary's mind raced. A two-pronged assault would split their defenses. They needed a new plan. Fast. "Get me Captain Griggs on the Endeavor," he said. Marcus's face appeared on the display. "Reporting as ordered, Admiral." "Change of plans, Marcus. I need you to take a strike force and hit one of those fleets from behind. Use the Sakari stealth ships. They're our best shot at an ambush." Marcus nodded grimly. "Understood, sir. We won't let you down." As the Endeavor and its escorts peeled off, Zachary turned his attention to the oncoming Zorath Armada. "All ships, battle stations, prepare to engage." The void lit up with weapons fire as the two fleets clashed. Plasma beams lanced out from Sakari cruisers while human railguns spat hypervelocity slugs. But the Zorath defenses held firm, their shields flickering under the barrage. "We can't punch through," a Sakari captain shouted over the comms. "Their screens are too strong." Zachary gripped the arms of his chair as the Defiance shuddered under enemy fire. "Hold the line. We just need to buy Marcus some time." Minutes stretched into what felt like hours. Sakari and human ships alike were pummeled by the relentless Zorath assault. Just as Zachary feared their line would break, new contacts appeared on sensors. "Multiple antimatter detonations detected in the enemy rear," the tactical officer reported. "It's the Endeavor, sir. They've sprung the trap." Zachary allowed himself a grim smile. "All ships, press the attack. Don't let up." Caught between hammer and anvil, the Zorath formations began to crumble. But as Zachary prepared to deliver the killing blow, alarms blared across the Defiance's bridge. "Sir, the Zorath flagship is making a run for the planet." Zachary's blood ran cold as he saw the massive vessel break through their lines, a payload of doomsday weapons primed to render the Sakari homeworld uninhabitable. "Like hell," Zachary growled. "Helm, pursuit course. Weapons, target their engines. We're taking that bastard down if it's the last thing we do." The Defiance gave chase, trading devastating broadsides with the Zorath command ship at point-blank range. Armor buckled, and systems failed on both vessels as they tore into each other. "Sir, we can't take much more of this," the XO shouted over the din of klaxons and exploding consoles. Zachary looked at the rapidly approaching planet, then at the crippled Zorath ship still stubbornly pressing on. He knew what had to be done. "All hands abandon ship," he ordered, his voice steady. "Helm, plot a collision course." As escape pods jettisoned from the Defiance, Zachary remained at his post. The Zorath flagship loomed larger in the view screen, its bioweapon payload ready to unleash devastation. "Not today," Zachary whispered. The two ships met in a blinding flash of antimatter annihilation. When the light faded, only debris remained, and the Sakari homeworld stood unscathed. Across the battlefield, Marcus Griggs watched in horror as the Defiance vanished from sensors. But there was no time to mourn. The remaining Zorath vessels, leaderless and outflanked, were rapidly losing cohesion. "All ships, this is Captain Griggs," he broadcast. "Push forward, finish this." One by one, the Zorath ships surrendered or were destroyed. As the last enemy vessel fell silent, an eerie calm settled over the system. The battle was won, but at a terrible cost. In the days that followed, Marcus oversaw the mop-up operation, rounding up Zorath stragglers and salvaging what they could from the debris fields, but his thoughts kept returning to Zachary's sacrifice. During a solemn ceremony on the Sakari homeworld, both humans and Sakari gathered to honor the fallen. A Sakari elder stepped forward, her voice carrying across the assembled crowd. "Today, we remember those who gave their lives so that we might live," she intoned. None more so than Admiral Zachary Burns, whose courage in the face of annihilation saved us all. Let his sacrifice be a testament to the strength of our alliance and a warning to any who would threaten our peoples again. As the ceremony concluded, Marcus gazed up at the stars. The Zorath threat was broken, but he knew their work was nowhere near the end. New challenges awaited them in the vast expanse of space, but whatever came next, humans and Sakari would face it together. Admiral Marcus Griggs stood on the bridge of the UES Endeavour, his eyes fixed on the tactical display as the last Zorath warship powered down its weapons. The acrid smell of burnt circuitry lingered in the air, a reminder of the fierce battle they had just endured. "Sir, the Zorath commander is requesting to speak with you," his communications officer reported. Griggs nodded, his face etched with weariness. "Put him through." The view screen flickered to life, revealing the defeated Zorath admiral. His once pristine uniform was torn and stained, his eyes sunken with exhaustion. "Admiral Griggs," the Zorath commander spoke, his voice hoarse. "We submit to your terms of surrender." Griggs leaned forward, his hands gripping the console. "Acknowledged. Prepare your ships for boarding. We'll begin processing your crews immediately." As the channel closed, Griggs turned to his XO. "Start compiling casualty reports. I want a full accounting of our losses." Hours passed as Griggs pored over the data. The cost of victory burdened immensely on him. Thousands of lives lost, hundreds of ships destroyed, and at the center of it all, the sacrifice of his mentor and friend, Zachary Burns. Days later, Griggs found himself on the Sakari homeworld, standing before a vast crowd of humans and Sakari. A young Sakari scientist named Kira stepped up to the podium, her voice carrying across the hushed gathering. "We are here today to honor those who gave everything so that we might live," Kira began, her eyes scanning the crowd. "Among them, none shine brighter than Admiral Zachary Burns. His final act saved not just the Sakari, but the very idea of what our two peoples can accomplish together." Griggs listened, his chest tight with emotion. As the ceremony concluded, he made his way through the crowd, shaking hands and offering words of comfort to the bereaved. A junior officer approached, his face grave. "Sir, we've intercepted some troubling communications. You need to see this." In a secure briefing room, Griggs and Kira huddled around a holographic display. Encrypted Zorath transmissions scrolled across the screen, revealing a chilling truth. "A rogue faction," Griggs muttered, his brow furrowed. "They've gone dark with a significant force." Kira's eyes widened as she processed the information. "That's not all. Look at this." She pulled up another file, showing security footage from the UES Defiance in its final moments. A nondescript crewman shifted and blurred, his features melting away to reveal a Zorath infiltrator. "A shapeshifter," Griggs breathed. "On the Defiance, what did they take?" The answer came swiftly and terribly. Not only had the saboteur escaped with vital technical data, but they had also managed to secure samples of the Zorath bioweapon. Griggs smacked his palm on the table. We need to move. Now. If they weaponize that pathogen again? Kira nodded, her face set with persistence. I'll assemble a joint task force. We'll need our best people for this. Over the next weeks, Griggs and Kira led their team on a relentless pursuit across the galaxy. They raided Zorath outposts, decrypted hidden messages, and pieced together the trail of the renegades. Finally, their search led them to a desolate moon orbiting a gas giant. Griggs stood on the bridge of his flagship, staring at the barren, cratered surface. This is it, he said, turning to Kira. Kravis is down there along with the bioweapon. We end this today. Kira nodded, her eyes blazing with purpose. I'll lead the ground team. We'll neutralize the pathogen and bring Kravis to justice. As Kira's infiltration team prepared to deploy, Griggs addressed the fleet. All ships, this is Admiral Griggs. The enemy we face today threatens everything we fought for, but we will not let them succeed. For the fallen, for our future. Engage! The battle erupted in orbit and on the surface simultaneously. Griggs's ships clashed with Kravis's loyalist forces, exchanging furious barrages of weapons fire. On the ground, Kira led her team through the maze-like corridors of the hidden base, fighting their way toward the bioweapon facility. Alarms blared as Kira's team breached the main lab. They worked quickly, initiating the fail-safe protocols to destroy the pathogen. But as the last vial was neutralized, a single shot rang out. Kira stumbled, clutching her side. She looked up to see Admiral Kravis himself, his face contorted with rage. You've ruined everything, Kravis snarled, backing toward an escape pod. Kira raised her weapon, but Kravis was too quick. The pod ejected, carrying the Zorath leader to safety as chaos engulfed the base. In orbit, Griggs watched as the rogue Zorath fleet scattered, fleeing into the depths of space. He wanted to give chase, but a desperate call from the surface changed everything. Admiral, one of Kira's team shouted over the comm. Kira's been hit. We need immediate evac. Griggs raced to the medical bay, arriving just as Kira was brought aboard. She grasped his hand, her breathing labored. The bioweapon, she gasped. We destroyed it, but Kravis, he escaped. Griggs leaned close, his voice thick with emotion. You did it, Kira. You saved your people. Kira's eyes locked onto his, filled with an urgent intensity. Promise me, Marcus, don't let this happen again. Our alliance, it's the key. Protect it, nurture it. As Kira's grip loosened, Griggs stood, his face set with grim perseverance. The victory was theirs, but the cost had been.
You have reached the end of the story. If you enjoyed this story and want to support us, please leave a like and subscribe to our channel. And for every comment that says 88, I will heart every single one of them. Thank you for your time.